WARCRAFT executive producer Holly Longdale recently confirmed that another movie based on the franchise is definitely on the table. The first film may not have met the studio's expectations, but with the huge success of game adaptations like Fallout, Microsoft is now seriously looking at building cinematic universes around their biggest titles. And in that climate, the idea of bringing WARCRAFT back suddenly feels more realistic than ever. Duncan Jones's 2016 movie pulled in nearly $500 million worldwide, which sounds impressive, but with a budget of around $160 million, it wasn't quite the blockbuster hit Universal and Legendary were hoping for. Sure, it technically made a profit, but not enough to confidently greenlight a sequel. The original plan was for a full trilogy. Actors had already signed on for multiple films, and the story was meant to stretch across years of releases. That said, calling the first film a failure would be unfair. At the time, it was actually one of the best performing video game adaptations ever. It's just that the industry has changed a lot since then. Today, projects like the Super Mario Bros. Movie, the Sonic trilogy, and even the upcoming Minecraft have turned into massive box office draws, proving that video game adaptations can compete with comic book blockbusters. Back in 2016, though, they were seen as risky bets with low budgets and even lower expectations, usually treated as side projects rather than tentpoles. But over the last few years, Hollywood has finally figured out how to adapt gaming worlds for the big screen, and audiences are here for it. In June, WARCRAFT dropped on HBO Max and completely blew up. Out of nowhere, the movie shot into the top 10 in just 48 hours, even outpacing the premiere of Wicked. But this sudden spike didn't come out of nowhere. Last year, the exact same thing happened when WARCRAFT randomly exploded on Netflix. It not only cracked the top 10, it debuted with some of the platform's highest day one view numbers. Now it's pulling the same numbers on HBO, and even though this revival is happening on streaming instead of theaters, it's already reigniting the conversation about the franchise's future. Some fans want a direct sequel, others are pushing for a total reboot, and for once, it doesn't feel like just wishful thinking. The head of Xbox's gaming division even told The Verge that after the success of Minecraft and Fallout, studios are seriously looking at ways to bring WARCRAFT back, whether that ends up being another movie or a full-on series. Back in 2016, WARCRAFT looked like a flop in theaters. Marketing costs were sky high, profits had to be split between Western and Chinese partners, and in the US, the film couldn't even clear $50 million. China, on the other hand, nearly tripled that number, keeping the movie afloat. But over time, things started shifting. Once WARCRAFT hit Netflix and then HBO Max, it surged into the platform's top 10 most watched lists in just a single day. And that's when things started to get interesting. Streaming platforms almost never reveal their licensing fees, but every now and then, numbers slip out. For example, in 2021, Netflix paid Sony $1 billion for a 4-year deal to stream their movies, including Venom and the Spider-Man Home trilogy. Now sure, WARCRAFT isn't Marvel and Blizzard isn't Sony, but we're still talking seven-figure licensing deals, which means every time WARCRAFT gets picked up by a big streaming service, it's not just hype, it's actual money flowing back to the rights holders. And when that kind of revenue starts piling up, studios suddenly start rethinking what they once called a failure. So why didn't WARCRAFT 2 ever happen? The answer is kind of ironic. For almost a decade now, WARCRAFT has held this strange record. It's the highest grossing video game adaptation that never got a sequel. What makes it even weirder is that plenty of other game movies that made way less money somehow got second, even third installments. Take Resident Evil. The first movie didn't set the world on fire, but it kicked off an entire franchise that ran for 6 films, plus a reboot. Tomb Raider, 2018, struggled at the box office, yet talks of a sequel went on for years. Even Silent Hill got a follow-up, despite mediocre performance. Meanwhile, WARCRAFT made $500 million and nothing. Clearly money wasn't the issue here. WARCRAFT wasn't a flop. If anything, it's proven to be a long-term asset that just keeps generating profit. The real reason came into focus earlier this year, when former Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick gave a surprisingly blunt interview about what went on behind the scenes. According to him, the deal for the WARCRAFT movie had been signed before 2008, and he admitted he hated the idea from the very beginning. That explains a lot. It's hard to imagine Blizzard pushing for a sequel when the top executive openly thought the first film was a mistake. But Kotick went even further, claiming the movie actually hurt Blizzard's main dev team. He said developers were pulled off World of Warcraft updates to act as consultants, which supposedly slowed down patches and expansions. He also complained that some devs got stars in their eyes, started dreaming about Hollywood, and lost focus on the games. When you zoom out though, it feels less like the movie was the problem and more like Kotick's leadership style. His era at Blizzard is often remembered for playing it safe, milking existing IPs, and avoiding creative risks. In that mindset, film adaptations weren't opportunities, they were distractions. Kotick never believed in the movie, so he blamed it for everything. Other voices inside Blizzard saw things very differently. Chris Metzen, one of the main architects of Warcraft lore, was proud of the film and openly supported the idea of a sequel. Up until 2023, he was still reposting rumors and news about a follow-up, showing real excitement for the franchise's future. Director Duncan Jones also never hid his frustration. He once said that to a company making billions every year, the movie felt like a low-priority annoyance. Something Blizzard leadership didn't want to invest in, didn't want to collaborate on, and constantly restricted creatively. So in the end, Warcraft 2 wasn't scrapped because of box office numbers, bad reviews, or even complicated lore. It was Blizzard leadership that killed it. The film existed because of an old contract, and once it was done, they just checked the box and moved on. But then the tide started to turn, thanks to some big leadership changes at Blizzard. After years of scandals and accusations about a toxic workplace, Bobby Kotick finally stepped down. And in a move that had fans cheering, Chris Metzen came back. One of the original creators of Warcraft, Metzen isn't just a name in the credits, he's someone who genuinely loves the world he helped shape. Almost immediately, players noticed the difference. World of Warcraft updates started improving, and then the buzz really began to grow. First came whispers of a possible movie adaptation centered on the iconic Lich King storyline, with none other than Henry Cavill rumored to play Arthas. Suddenly, the idea of another Warcraft movie didn't feel like a burden anymore. It felt like a lifeline, a chance to reignite interest in the brand, pull in new audiences, and breathe fresh energy into a franchise that badly needs to evolve. And honestly, the timing couldn't be better. Arcane reignited hype around League of Legends. Sonic became a full-blown franchise. The Super Mario Bros. Movie crossed $1 billion and proved even animated adaptations can dominate the box office. Warcraft could absolutely be next. In fact, Blizzard execs have already started dropping hints. They're careful, but the dismissive attitude is gone. Before stepping down, longtime franchise director John Haidt said they'd be open to offers, as long as the people behind the camera were real filmmakers, not game devs trying to moonlight as directors. His replacement is Chris Metzen himself, a huge supporter of the 2016 film and someone who's openly said he'd love to see a sequel. Right now, his focus is on saving the core game and rebuilding trust with the community, but a little further down the road, he might just be the one to finally give Warcraft the cinematic treatment it deserves. But the biggest game changer here isn't Blizzard, it's Microsoft. By the end of 2024, the message was loud and clear. A Warcraft movie or series is coming. Matt Booty, head of Xbox Game Studios, told Variety that after the breakout success of Fallout and Minecraft, the company is seriously planning a Warcraft adaptation, this time with an experienced production partner. They're not rushing to pick a studio, but their intentions are very real. A straight sequel? Pretty unlikely. Almost a decade has passed, the original cast has aged, some actors have moved on to other franchises, and there's now an entire generation of viewers who either missed the 2016 movie or don't even know it exists. So what's far more likely is a full reboot. A fresh take with a new creative team and a brand new direction. And don't expect some giant Marvel-style cinematic universe either. One of the biggest missteps of the first film was trying to cram in way too much. The script pulled from 4 different games, introduced 100 characters, and tried to unpack the entire lore of Azeroth, all in 2 hours. Even hardcore fans struggled to follow along, while newcomers were totally lost. This time, the plan sounds way smarter. In their Variety interview, Microsoft execs were crystal clear. The story has to be linear, grounded, and focused on a single narrative thread. Fallout was the model here, a tight, self-contained story that didn't rely on building an entire mega-universe right out of the gate. That mindset is already shaping the conversations behind the scenes. The goal isn't to launch a 10-year franchise roadmap. It's to tell one strong, well-crafted story. Smaller in scale, more focused, but something that actually lands. And if it does, then you talk expansion. And if we're comparing Warcraft to Fallout, there's one storyline that immediately stands out. Arthas. He's one of the most tragic figures in the entire lore. Warcraft's version of Anakin Skywalker. A prince raised in war, a heroic paladin who wanted nothing more than to protect his people, only to fall into darkness and become the Lich King. It's timeless, emotional, and foolproof, as long as you don't cram it alongside 10 other plotlines, which is exactly why Arthas keeps coming up whenever talk of a reboot surfaces. It's epic, it's deeply personal, and it works for both longtime fans and newcomers. That said, there's another contender just as strong. Thrall, born into slavery after the war and raised by humans in a prison camp, his story mirrors Arthas's. Both endured the same brutal world, but while Arthas fell, Thrall rose. He became the leader who freed the orcs, rebuilt their culture, forged peace with the Alliance, and fought to end the cycle of endless war. Duncan Jones had actually planned to tell Thrall's story in his unmade sequel, and honestly, it could be the perfect entry point for a reboot. It stands on its own, it's emotionally grounded, and for fans of the first movie, it even works as a soft continuation. The truth is, the Warcraft universe is overflowing with rich lore and ready-made arcs. Writers don't need to reinvent anything, they just need to respect what's already there. The blueprint exists. The only question now is whether the next adaptation finally gives this world the justice it deserves.